Are you a high-performing parent, entrepreneur, or high achiever in pursuit of excellence? Welcome to The Nexus Podcast, a podcast custom-tailored for families like ours, driven, affluent, and eager to lead extraordinary lives. From rockstar stay-at-home moms to high-producing CEOs, we choose to model success for everyone we are surrounded by. We prioritize health over sickness, embrace a vitalistic lifestyle, and seek to tap into the limitless potential that God has bestowed upon us. I'm Dr. Daniel Kimbley, your host, and on this podcast, we'll uncover the secrets to living a fulfilling and abundant life, where you and your loved ones can thrive physically, mentally, and spiritually. Together, we'll forge a path to greatness and unleash your God-given capabilities. Get ready to say yes to a life of true prosperity and well-being. This is The Nexus Podcast. What is up, Nexus fam? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. And this week on the podcast, I gotta be full disclosure with you. I have been running hard this week. I skipped my Tuesday when I normally record my podcast. And so I'm literally recording this like less than 10 hours before it gets released on Monday. So if you are listening, know I just recorded this. This is not something brand new, depending on when you listen to the podcast and what episode you're on. So without further ado, here's what I want to talk about this week. Share a quick story with you. Full disclosure, last night I was actually sitting on my phone thumbing on Instagram, and I saw something that I have not seen before on Instagram or on Facebook in terms of advertising, and I was so shocked that I brought it up to Heather. And the thing that I saw is this, as you may laugh when you hear me say this because it doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but to me it is, and I'll share why in a second. So here's what I see. I'm thumbing on Facebook. I'm actually looking for a friend of mine who was in a fitness competition this weekend. I was just looking to see results or some pictures or some things like that. And what I saw instead was an advertisement from a medical company. And the advertisement wasn't for, like a supplement or something like that. We see lots of those on Instagram and Facebook. But actually what it was for a vaccine, for a shot. And I was taken aback. Like, I was really, really shocked by it. And I was kind of, in my initial gut was like to be frustrated and pissed off and like, oh my gosh, people are just being fed, regardless of where you stand on vaccines or whatever, like people are being fed information on the deepest level possible. And like part of the reason I bring this up is because the United States is only one of two places in the entire world that medical pharmaceutical companies are allowed to advertise directly to the consumer. So like this advertisement is literally saying you should go ask your doctor to get this shot. We're only one of two places in the entire world where this is allowed. So, because like as an individual, I shouldn't be able to walk into my doctor's office and request this pharmaceutical drug based on what I saw in a commercial. That's not how it's supposed to work. How it's supposed to work is the doctor does a thorough workup with you. They know what's going on with you. They give you answers about what's happening with you, and then they write a prescription. And I'll talk about why that model I think is flawed here in just a second, but I think what's more important than this is this idea that like, okay, I've heard major advertisers in the past or major people in the marketing world in the past talk about how like big companies don't need to use advertising dollars on Facebook and on Instagram and social media and those kinds of things because they're so big that they can get enough people just from the means that they're already using, which would be TV and radio for the most part. And so when I look and I see this ad for the first time, I can't help but think about those words of like, big companies don't need to advertise on Facebook and on Instagram because they already have enough advertising dollars going out to bring consumers to them through other means. So then I start thinking, I kind of get excited about this ad and I'm like, oh my gosh, how cool is it that to me, it looks like people are waking up. That's right, people are waking up because if big companies are starting to dump their advertising dollars into the same place that smaller businesses usually do, like Facebook and Instagram, then they're trying to reach more people and target more people. And what this tells me is that maybe, just maybe, the pharmaceutical industry in and of itself is actually a sinking ship and they're having trouble with some of the things that they have claimed to be super safe and super healthy for us and what would keep us healthy in the first place. Now, I bring this to you because there's hope. I bring this to you because I had to share this idea and this model and this philosophy and this thought process about like what really keeps us safe and what really keeps us healthy and what really allows our bodies to express health at the highest level possible. And in my opinion, it doesn't come from medication. Like our bodies, when we were born, the first day of life, like our bodies aren't deficient from a medication. If someone has a skin issue, let's say, and they take a medication that quote unquote fixes it, my question always is like, what happens as soon as the person stops taking the medication? Does the skin issue come right back, or is it really actually fixed? And every time, like I sat down with a guy who was he's an oncologist, right? So he worked with cancer patients. And he sat down with me and he told me, he's like, I have high blood pressure, but it's cured. And I'm like, oh, that's cool, man. Like, how'd you cure it? Through nutrition? Like, what have you been exercising? Like, what have you been doing for your high blood pressure? He's like, oh, I take a pill every day. And I'm like, okay, so it's cured, but to cure means to go away for good, and the only way it's gone for good is if you take the medication for the rest of your life. So what happens when you stop taking the medication? And he looked at me blankly and he's like, well, the high blood pressure would come back. And I'm like, so how is it cured? And he didn't have a response for it. He's just like, oh. And you know, so often we see this, I see this in my life, and I think it's so important to just bring from a philosophical perspective is like there's two camps, right? There's one of two camps that you can live in, and I don't necessarily know, like for me, in the way that I live my life, vitality is one of my core values, meaning that we believe that the body is self-healing, self-regulating, self-maintaining the way God designed us. The body is self-healing, self-regulating, self-maintaining the way God designed us. And in that model of healing, of thought process about our bodies, in my family, we see no place, this is not medical advice, this is my personal opinion, is that in my family, what we see is there is no room for medication. There is no room for anything outside of our body being self-healing, self-regulating, self-maintaining. Now, I bring this up to you because I think it's an important point to think about what kind of system, what kind of a model do we have for healthcare in our modern society, because a lot of people call it healthcare, my health insurance. It's like, but your health insurance you only use when you go to the doctor when there's something wrong, which means that you have a symptom, which means that you're sick, which really means that it's not health insurance because they're not doing anything to keep you healthy. They're only addressing you when you're sick, which is sick care. Like it's sick insurance. Because if you aren't sick, then you don't need the insurance in the first place. And guess what? 99% of the families that I take care of inside of my office have the same exact complaint. They're like, Dr. Daniel, I love you. It sucks that you guys don't take insurance, but we understand the reason that you don't take insurance is because you are actually allowing our bodies to express health while everybody else just cares about us not being sick or addressing us when we are sick. And it's such a different approach. Like all these new families, all these new parents I have, they're like, who should my kid's pediatrician be? And I'm like, well, it depends on what you want to do. Do you want to give them antibiotics? Do you want to give them drugs? Or do you believe that vitalistically their body is self-healing, self-regulating, self-maintaining? Because the last time I checked, and maybe I would have to go to a textbook for this, but the last time I checked is that when I open up a textbook and I look at it, there's nowhere in there that says that you needed a doctor to build your brain on your own, or tell your heart when to develop, or tell your cells when to divide, or tell your lungs when to develop. All of those things were innate, meaning they were given to you by God. Our entire system is designed to express health. And the way I think about this is a simple analogy. Is like, imagine that if you're in your house or your apartment or whatever room you're in right now, like think about this, is that if there was a fire and the smoke detector was going off, the smoke detector's going off, the smoke detector's super annoying. What's gonna be your first thing that you do? My guess is if you're anything like me, is you're not gonna go to the smoke detector and take the battery out. You're gonna start looking around the house. And most of sick care, what people call health care, is actually just that. It's that, oh, you have a symptom? Let's give a medication to address it. Oh, you have a symptom? Let's just Band-Aid approach it with this. Oh, you have a symptom? Let's just make the symptom go away without addressing any actual cause in the first place. This is a sick care approach. It's a Band-Aid approach instead of what we do in my office. And again, this isn't about my office, this is just a philosophical conversation, is that we're looking for the cause. Like what caused the high blood pressure? What caused the skin issues? What caused the digestive issues? What caused the neurological issues? What caused the pain? What caused the headaches? What caused the vision issues? What caused the nystagmus? What caused the strabismus? What caused the ADHD? What caused the autism? Like, because there are causes. And the reality is like most people show up to a medical doctor and they say, hey, I have this going on, I have this going on, and I have this going on. And the doctor gives a fancy word and they say, oh, you have myocarditis, which is inflammation of the heart. Or, oh, you have like pain I come into the doctor's office and I say, I have pain all over my body, and it feels like it's like muscle pain, and the doctor say, oh, you have fibromyalgia. It's like, literally, I just told, fibromyalgia means pain in the muscles. I just told you that. So you just put a fancy name on it, and then you prescribe me medication and I'm magically fixed. But it makes no sense to me. And again, this is not medical advice, this is my personal opinion. So the reason I'm sharing with this with you is because I believe that it is super important to start asking questions. I believe and I am excited because I see that the world is starting to wake up. And I see that when I see these ads on Instagram and Facebook, to me it looks like a sinking ship, but that people are starting to wake up to the fact that God designed you intelligently. Things like skin issues, things like digestive issues, things like fevers, any symptom that you could think of is your body's normal response. That's right, I said it. Your symptoms are your body's normal response to an abnormal amount of stress. And if you don't address the stress, if you don't address your stress hormones, and it doesn't mean just meditating, it doesn't mean just giving up all your things that are stressful in your life, it means addressing the way that your nervous system adapts to that pressure of the stress, which is what brain-based chiropractors like myself do. But if you don't address the stress, then your body will continually forever be in that same cause. The same cause being stress. The symptoms are normal to an abnormal amount of stress. I can't state this enough because it's so important. And when you understand that your body was designed intelligently, that your body was actually designed to have pain to tell you to stop doing something, that your body was actually designed to have symptoms in the first place, to express itself, to let you know that there's something wrong, when we start to look at the cause instead of symptoms, and we start to cure a cause, and we start to address a cause instead of address symptoms, and we start to look at a healthcare model of what builds health in someone's body instead of what just prevents them from getting sick or what fixes them when they're sick, the reality is that your body can only heal itself. Like, even if you take medication, my question for you would be like, who decides what the medication does or inside of your body? Like, is it you? Is it the doctor? Is it the people who made the drugs? Because the last I checked is like every single person has different side effects. One medication that will work for somebody won't work for somebody else. Why? Because we're all biochemically, individually different. And so what this means is that your body, designed by God, was designed to heal itself. This is a vitalistic principle. Our bodies are self-healing. They're self-regulating. They're self-maintaining the way God intended us to be. And my friends, the model that most of us live in is a sinking ship model. It's evidenced by the ad I saw on Facebook. And so while it frustrates me, while I may have different stances on you and what the allopathic approach is versus the non-allopathic approach, or while we may have different viewpoints on vaccine versus not vaccines, that's never the issue. Like, the issue is like, do you believe that your body is broken and it needs saved? Or do you believe that your body was born with every single thing that it already needs? And here's what I know to be true, and this is not an opinion, this is a fact, is that the people who step into our office realize that there's a level of healing that's possible when their body functions at 100%, and the only way that it functions at 100%, the only way that it can truly express health at 100% is if the nervous system is firing and functioning at 100%. And my friends, that is all I have for you on this episode. I love you, I appreciate you. If you got some value out of it, leave me a rating, leave a review, leave some comments, ask some questions. I would love to dive back into this conversation even more deeply, and I love and appreciate every single one of you. I'll come at you again next week. Peace.